What's going on, everybody, and welcome to the Payton Collier podcast. My next guest is a singer, songwriter, and Americana artist from deep in the heart of Kentucky. His soulful tunes come blessed with the vulnerability of an honest troubadour, healing others in his journey from story to song. He's also a podcast host and inspired me to finally get mine rolling when I was a guest on his podcast earlier this year. We sat down for a deep dive, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Lots of laughs, ladies and gentlemen, with the man himself, Josh Merritt. Here we are with none other than Kentucky music artist, Mr. Josh Merritt.
My pleasure to be here, man. This is really cool.
I met you on my birthday this year when I came to Owensboro, Kentucky to play at Brasher's Little Nashville, Andy Brasher's Little Nashville bar.
Yep.
There in Owensboro, Kentucky, where you live. You were playing before the piano show that I was doing there that night. And then you kind of ended up being our chauffeur and our guide around Owensboro.
Showing you the sights. Yeah, man. I had to show you my city, man.
Yeah, so dude, so tell me a little bit about growing up in Owensboro, Kentucky, and how you started to get into the field of music, brother.
Well, it's funny, I'll say first, we just went and ate barbecue, and there's like 1,600 different barbecue capitals of the world, but Owensboro is actually one of them. They actually have a title in the pen as a barbecue capital of the world. We have a big barbecue festival every year, and everywhere that I've went that claims that they are a barbecue capital of the world, it seems like the whole thing is they each have a niche in the barbecue game. And Owensboro's is they cook this thing called mutton, which is it's sheep, and then they also make this stuff called burgoo, which is like a stew, and it's made with mutton, and that's what they're known for. So, but anyway, I enjoy going to. I'm a big barbecue guy. I grew up in the barbecue game, so that's when I'm traveling and stuff. So I'm glad we went and ate barbecue, is what I'm trying to say, man.
Yeah, dude, I had to get your feet wet a little. I don't even know. I think Barbecuties started out in Nashville here.
Did they?
But now it's like a chain, and I was telling you, I didn't know that it was right down the street. But dude, they have a drive-through 7 days a week that's open till 8 p.m. And if you know, as you know, I like to get out of bed around the 7:50 mark. Yeah. And so Owensboro is a barbecue capital of the world, and you.
Well, I'll tell you this: Owensboro is also the bluegrass capital of the world. It is the official bluegrass capital of the world. Bluegrass was actually, it came to light. It was started in a place called Rosine, Kentucky, which is about 30 minutes south of Owensboro. But the International Bluegrass Museum was just built like 4 years ago, and it's in Owensboro now. So Owensboro's it's got a big music scene, man. It's not a huge town, but it's got a really big music scene, and there's a lot of musicians coming out of that area in general right now. But my dad was a musician, kind of like us, back in his early 20s, and came from a family that prided themselves in being like a bluegrass family. So it was like, my dad was one of 14, so all of his brothers and sisters all played or sang or something, and they would go to like, different shindigs around town, and they would come and be the entertainment. Just
one of 14.
One of 14 children.
Unbelievable.
He was the very middle, yeah.
What, number 7?
Or
8.
8.
He's on the other side of it, huh?
Yeah. So
I don't know. I mean, dude, could you imagine in today's world?
Not at all.
Like if you met somebody that had 14 kids. But back then, I guess you were telling me earlier that you like grew up on a kind of a farm and stuff, and back in the day, that was the way that you took care of your farm. You had that many kids, and you raised that family and stuff. My grandma is one of 12. And one of them is triplets. And there's still like 6 I ain't met.
That's insane.
But no, what's insane is 14 kids. I don't even know if I've ever heard about anybody having that many kids.
It's something else.
And Daddy started picking. So they're all picking and grinning back in the day.
Yeah, we always joke around and say there must not have been a lot to do back then.
Yeah.
Except make babies,
Shit, yeah, couldn't.
Because they didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't that, that wasn't that kind of situation. Like they were like, oh, we got plenty of money to support. I don't think that was even a thought. I think my grandparents were both devout Catholic people, and I think they, especially in the Catholic religion, it's the whole be fruitful is a very, very prominent thing. So,
Yeah.
they don't believe in contraception and things like that.
Yeah.
So anyway, Dad's one of 14. My dad's a fiddle player, and then he plays guitar, and he's a songwriter as well. So I came about it pretty natural. My dad was always playing and singing around the house.
Oh wait, dude, I met your dad.
Did you?
Yeah, at the stage rooftop. Remember?
Oh, yeah. We came in. We was having a wild night that night, man. We came down for Americana Fest, and we ended up in there to see you guys.
We did. It was like we were doing courtesy of the Red, White, and Blue or something.
Yeah,
and your dad did a solo. Yeah, Jake handed him his fiddle.
Jake came off stage, and handed him the fiddle.
Shout out Jake Holder.
Yeah, and he did. He did a little piece from the ground down there.
Which is also kind of how I got linked up with you, because Jake Holder, amazing fiddle player, good friend of yours. You grew up with him, right? He when I told him I was going to Owensboro, he's like, dude, I got to link you up with my dude, Josh Merritt. And what's funny is, I think I'd walked in, like passed by you. We were like carrying stuff in. And then I went up to the green room because you can stay the night there at Brasher's Little Nashville. They have a green room for the musicians that play there.
They got it set up nice.
They've got it set up real nice. So I'm like, I'm going to go up here and score a nap before I have to play later. And I couldn't fucking sleep because somebody's down there singing like a little bird and nailing it. And I was literally just thinking, I was like, fuck. And I was like, can't sleep. And I was like, guy's pretty fucking good. I was like,
Yeah, but it was, and see, I didn't know that. You said that Jake had told you to come. I didn't know that at all when I think we made our introductions. However, that maybe you came up to me and said, "Hey, I don't know. I don't remember how that went down."
Actually, I think I didn't talk to you till after my nap that I didn't take. Yeah. I came down right before the show, and I probably got like a couple beers in me, and I was just like, "Hey, man, good job."
Yeah.
I had a cool guy at a little bit before. I didn't want you to think I was too impressed when I was up there losing sleep for what seemed like a lifetime.
I heard you stomping on the... No, I'm just kidding.
Shut up.
No, it's a good... Andy's got a good place there, man.
Yeah, shout out Andy Brasher.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a good place there, man. He takes care of me too, man. Like I said, that's my town.
Yeah, dude. Where I live. You're all over those parts. Who's that lady that always comes out to support you?
Stacy. Yeah, she's like my best friend.
Stacy get wild.
She's so wild.
Shout out Miss Stacy.
Yeah, Stacy Foster. Yeah.
You have to send her a link to this and let her know. I wonder if she'll remember me. Surely, because
she will. Yeah, she's from that generation. I don't know if it seems like people from that generation, my dad included, it's like they never forget people. And I never forget a face, man, but just like we were talking earlier, like I'm so horrible with names, which is bad when you do this, like when you're networking and trying to, get to know people and build a fan base when you're going different places. It's a very good tool to be able to remember someone's name just for common courtesy, and I'm horrible at remembering names. I can't get over it.
Every night, dude. I've had that thought many times where I'm like, I think like the most, if you can learn, regardless of what field of work you enter, if you can learn the art of remembering people's name, and because you were like, people from that generation, they like don't forget anything. And I'm like, but that's because, back in your daddy's day, when you shook a man's hand, it meant something.
Sure.
You looked into his eyes, it meant something.
There's a weird, and you may know what it's called. There's a weird phenomenon with the human brain. I read this somewhere that we're only programmed to remember. I think it's like 137 people. It's that's not the number. It's something like that though. It's some weird off number. And it goes back to like when people were in colonies and tribes and things, people would naturally colonize no more than like 137 people. And it's because that's our mental capacity to you can know thousands and thousands of people, obviously, but to actually know them, you know what I'm saying? Where you feel like you know them on a personal level. Again, I read this whole article about it, and it talked about how there's a limit to that. It's around 130, 140 people.
Yeah,
like
life gets a little bit harder after you sleep with that 138th chick, dude. Be that unlucky 138, dude.
Yeah.
Shit.
Oh.
I don't think I'm anywhere near those numbers, so I still got a while to go. But okay, so back on track here.
I don't know if I am or not. I think I might be.
You're at 138.
I might be close.
Right at 138.
I might be. I don't know. See, you stopped remembering though. I had to delete some of them.
Who was number 138? What was his name?
Oh, Philip.
Look at I just did that. If you just put that in there.
Philip.
So you're growing up in Owensboro, and your father was a very musical man. Grew up in a very musical family. When did the creative fire start burning within you, Mr. Merritt? When did you start taking those chords and taking those melodies that had entered your brainosphere over the last several years and go, well, I think I got something to say. I think I got a voice that needs to get out.
I probably didn't get to that. I probably didn't get to that point until much, much later in my life. But I know my mom has pictures of me when I was like 5 and 6 years old, and I was obsessed with George Strait when I was a little boy, and loved country music when I was a little boy, and I used to have this cassette tape player. It was made for kids, and it had a little microphone on the side of it. And I would walk around just singing around the house, and my mom tells people all the time, she's like, he said when he was 5 years old that he wanted to be a country singer. So it's like, it's something I've always wanted to do. And, you know, I'm like, kids say stuff like that, but I'm still doing it. So,
are you the guy with the John Anderson story?
yeah.
Dude, tell me what's the John Anderson story again.
Sure. So,
singer of such country hits as Seminole Wind.
yeah, he's Mr. Country
Swinging.
as far as I'm concerned. So in my house growing, my dad was the biggest John Anderson fan, to the point, and I say this all the time on stage, and it either gets a laugh or it gets complete crickets. But I tell people, like, we grew up going to church on Sunday and stuff, and we were a Catholic household. When you walked in, there was a picture of Jesus on the wall, and not to be sacrilegious at all in any fashion, but there was a picture of John Anderson right next to it. So,
I don't think there's anything sacrilegious about that, brother.
So I'm not saying we worship John Anderson, but I'm just saying there was a picture of him beside Jesus in our house. So, but anyway,
in this house, there's only
Yeah.
there's only two gods: the good man upstairs and Mr. John Anderson.
John Anderson. So anyway, my dad loved John Anderson. So if you grew up in my house, you had to love John Anderson. But we went to, I think it was Farm Aid, was in Louisville Motor Speedway, which is at Louisville, Kentucky, one year. And I probably couldn't have been 3 or 4 years old. And you'd have to know my dad. He's the type, though, like, if there's a sign that says "Do not enter," like, that doesn't apply to him. He just
Goes on
goes and does and says as he pleases. And anyway, this particular we'd been walking around this festival. It was blazing hot outside, and he had me on his shoulders, and really he was just back creeping around and ended up working his way back behind the stage, back to where the tour buses were and stuff. But we were walking along, as the story goes, and a guy came off one of the tour buses and seen this guy walking around with this kid on his shoulders and was like, "Hey, what are you doing back here?" And my dad thought real quick, and he said, "Oh, my son, he's really thirsty. I got to find somewhere to get him a drink." And really, he was trying to save his ass a little bit, you know, like why he was back here, whatever. And the guy kind of got quiet for a minute, and he said, "Well, hang on just a second." He went back on the bus, and John Anderson came off the bus and was like, "Well, hey, y'all come up on this bus." So we got the air conditioner rolling. So we went up on the bus, and John Anderson was sponsored by Country Times lemonade at the time. So there was just stacks and stacks of boxes of Country Time lemonade.
Now I remember the
it's
story.
All coming back. Yeah.
Because because Country Time lemonade was like the theme of the weekend. But carry on. Sure. I'm fully invested hearing it again. I'm fully invested.
So anyway, we get up on the bus, and my dad's oh my gosh, we're huge fans, and followed you my whole life, and he's like, "Yeah, my son here." He's like, again, I couldn't have been 4 years old, But he's like, oh, my son, he sings, and blah blah. So I'm sitting on John Anderson's lap, and he's like, well, sing him something there. And my dad said I started belting out "You Are My Sunshine" as loud as I could possibly scream it directly into John Anderson's ear, to where he was quincing almost. And he's such a nice man. He was like, "Yeah, he sounds great. Got a set of pipes on him, this boy." And that was kind of that. We said our days and do's, and then we came back off the bus. Well, anyway, 20 years later, it must have been. Me and my dad went to see John Anderson. And we got a picture with him while we were on the bus, and it's me sitting in John Anderson's lap, and my dad standing behind us. 20 years later, we go to see John Anderson at Renfro Valley in eastern Kentucky, and my dad's talking with some guy out back, just gift of gabbing it, and I remember that day I was kind of like, I didn't know who he was talking to. And I'm in my early 20s, man. And I'm God, come on, let's go sit down. He's talking to somebody again, type thing. Well, I finally get him away from this guy, and we go in to sit down. And my dad's like, "Oh, that guy's gonna bring us backstage." And I was like, "No, he's not." And so we go to sit down in our seats, and sure enough, the guy comes out. And he's like, "Hey, come on back." And we go into this private room with John Anderson again, man. And I mean, he's an old man at this point, and he sat and talked with us for a little while. And my dad had the picture with him, and he showed him the picture. And John Anderson's, I don't know if it was his wife, or it looked like it could have been his wife or his sister or somebody. But she's like, "Oh, we have to recreate this." So I'd sit on John Anderson's lap, and my dad was behind him. We have the side-by-side picture somewhere.
Dude, some people are good at sports. Some people are good at acting. Some guys are good at getting backstage at John Anderson's shows.
Paul Merritt.
You're Paul Merritt. Your daddy said, "I'm going to swing my way on backstage."
This is the same guy.
You've got to share those pictures with me. Can we put them up?
I wanted to do it. Yeah, I would love if I can find them.
Yeah.
Because I went over to look for them a while back, and I could find the one when I was a kid. We've got copies of it everywhere, but I couldn't find
the one that was taken with an iPhone.
The second,
course.
Exactly, because we probably never printed it. That's exactly it. So I'll look for them though. If I can find them, I'll send them to you. You can post them up with this.
Yeah, pretty unique. Our relationship with preserving things that are physical.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, it's something.
Have you ever just like wiped your phone or your computer and just been like, "Fuck it, whatever's on there"?
I did it not too long ago with my pictures,
Yeah.
with the pictures part. Because I was like, "There's too much," and like I would go looking for something and I couldn't find it, and I was like, I would rather not have any of it than have it all right here and not be able to find anything on it because it's too dense. So.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want any of the nude pictures of 138 on there.
Yeah.
I was brushing up on my Josh Merritt knowledge, joshmerritt.com. You've got I was saying, not only did you help me get my podcast going and stuff, but you've kind of like done a lot of the stuff that I want to do already, which is like finish that website and just kind of get like a more professional presence. Because like if you Google my name right now, you get like a lawyer in California.
Yeah.
And then maybe my mugshot from college, but just weed. Nothing too crazy. But if you Google your name, Josh Merritt, it says like musical artist, and it's all these like professional pictures of you and like the Spotify links and stuff. And so, when did you decide that you're like, I want to take this artist thing seriously, and I want to not only write and produce these songs, but I really want to have an element, or I want to have a career out of music and songs that I write. Because you do a lot more, original type stuff. You play original songs at your shows and stuff. Obviously, we got to do the Zach Brown band songs to pay the bills. Sometimes,
yeah. There's what I call the cover gigs, and then there's the artist gigs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, and I try to do a healthy mix of both. But just like you said, it's the cover gigs that pay the bills, to be honest. But I've been a full-time musician where I haven't had to go grab a day job, and I've been blessed in this fashion for 8 years. And I started playing music like out at bars and stuff when I was 21. So roughly 4 years after that, I quit my very good day job that I had and decided
What was
just
that?
wanted to be. I was a heating and air technician.
Heating and air technician.
Yep. I got that gig right out of high school. I went to tech school while I was still in high school and did like the tech program that you can do. And I did heating and air, and I got into that as soon as I got out of high school just to have a job. I was like, what am I going to do? I'm going to go do this. And so I did that, was an apprentice, which means I was a go fetch boy, a laborer you got to do that for 2 years. And then I got my license in heating and air. And at the time that I quit, I ran my own truck. I mean, I was about as, top of the pile in that company as you could get without being like a supervisor or something like that. So
Can
I
you
was
come
doing well for myself.
check out something in the attic real quick?
No,
No.
no.
Those
And
days
I fear ever saying that on podcasts because that's always the second question.
Oh, is it?
It's always every time I'm like, what did you do before this? I did heating and air. Man, I tell you what, my unit is making a sound. Is there any way you could look at that? And I tell people all the time, I was like, I've forgotten everything.
Those days are behind me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I did heating and air for 7 years, I think. Let's do the math. I was 24 when I quit. I started when I was 18. So that'd be 4, 5, 6 years. Sorry. So I got out of school. I went into heating and air just to have a job and worked my way up the ladder almost unconsciously. It was not my plan to stay in heating and air at all. So when I first got out of school, I went to college and I got my degree in criminal justice, believe it or not. And the day that I graduated college, I'd also had an offer to go work for the Owensboro Police Department. I wanted to be a probation officer is what I wanted to be, but the steps into doing that is usually to be a uniformed officer.
Why that specifically? So you could be like, hey, you don't have to piss in that cup. You're good.
Kind of, not really. Like a lot of my family, like on my mom's side particularly, there's a whole backstory of there's a my childhood's got a pretty dark story on my mom's side. My mom was addicted to methamphetamine most of my childhood, and we got like taken away from her when we was a kid. It was the whole thing.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yeah, and so it seems like all my mom's family. My uncle, he's lived in he's a what you call a career inmate is the way he says it. I mean, he's honestly been in prison more than he's been out. He's been out for like 2 years now, and man, he's kicking ass. I'm really proud of him. I just seen him at Thanksgiving.
And it's hard to
Shout out to Uncle
adjust
Gary.
too. A lot of people that spend their whole life in the pen, they get out in the real world, they finally have freedom, and they're like, I don't even know how to exist in this life.
Well, and honestly, my Uncle Gary was a big part of that. He would always go in for 2 years. He'd be out for a year. And because of the system, he would always end up back in. And sometimes it was like, okay, yeah, you dicked up again. Like, you got to go back in. But sometimes it was stupid shit. You know what I mean? Sometimes it was just it's a paperwork thing, and it would break his
Parking
probation.
tickets.
Yeah,
Right.
who knows? Something, And I thought, man, if I could do that job, maybe I could help people like that.
Because there's got to be a way to do the job whilst still exhibiting humanity.
Sure.
Right.
You know what's ironic about this, and I haven't said this to anybody.
Tell me the irony.
So I told you about the girl that I'm dating now, my girlfriend.
What's his name?
George. No.
Every chance I get, baby.
I'm there with it, baby. No, but my girlfriend is a probation officer.
Wow,
Isn't
that is
crazy?
wildly
Isn't that
ironic.
nuts? Yeah, it
especially
really is,
since
man.
if you don't mind me sharing this, just
She's gonna hate that I just said that on this public forum.
how
but-
highly you think of her and how happy you are being with her and
Yeah.
stuff. It's kind of ironic that she does the job that you used to want to do to help people.
I know.
Does she carry that same mindset with her occupation?
Absolutely. I've learned being with her, though, I can tell that she is somebody that got into that field. Absolutely. Because we have the same heart, me and her do. That's one of the reasons why it's just so, So I know that she got into those things for the same reasons that I did. I know just like anything you go into, even music, some of the glitter wears off over time from doing, I'm sure the same as you playing music. It's my passion, it's my light, it's my source. But there's definitely weeks where you're just beat down from doing, 6 gigs this week to try to make it, and it's like you're not particularly looking forward to going out tonight. You know what I mean? Doesn't mean that you hate it anymore. Maybe tomorrow I'm rested up and it's just as fun again. But same with that job. You can tell that, because there's you deal with people that you do want to help, and you deal with people. You also deal with shitheads. You know what I'm saying? That you want to help, but they won't let you help them. You know what I'm saying? So I can see where that wears on her sometimes doing that job.
Dude, I think I have a friend that did EMS, and he was super passionate about it.
Yeah.
Emergency medical services, of course. Didn't know if you knew the acronym. And, dude, the other day, you see this road we took to go to Barbecuties here.
Yeah.
Well, there's this sharp pass where it's kind of blocked by land, but people come around pretty fast. I came around the other day. I was the first person on the scene of a motorcycle accident.
No shit.
A guy had hit the back of a car, flown over it, and flown off the motorcycle. And of course, you drive past like a scene and stuff. You want to help, but if you're like headed to work or something, you're kind of just like, oh, I hope somebody else is already there first. You know? Is at least what I was thinking. I was like, damn, I hope I'm not the first person here. And I looked around, I was like, shit, I'm the first person here. I got to help.
Yeah.
And so this other guy pulled over too. And this bike was in the road and it was leaking and it was gasoline. And the guy that had wrecked, he was heavily injured, but at that time was coherent. And he's like, y'all got to get my bike out of the road. And people are coming around the bend and they don't know that there's this accident here. And if you're just driving the speed limit, you could come and just run right over us. And this guy's like, he's like, y'all got to get my fucking bike out of the road. And I'm like, listen, man, he's like, you got to turn my bike off. I'm like, turn your bike off as in the gasoline that's coming out of the bike that I can see, as in if that bike doesn't turn off, this thing's going to explode. He's like, yeah. And I was like, yeah, I ain't going to turn that bike off. And this other guy runs up and he's like, man, let's get this bike out of the road. And he's like, oh shit, this thing is still on. And so we're like, what do we do? And this guy gets up, the motorcyclist gets up like in like adrenaline fueled like rage.
I was about to say
anger.
that's got to be what's going on, just adrenaline.
Yeah. And he gets up and turns it off. And as soon as it turns off, and we're like, his leg is fucked up. He's like limping and like gets up. And we're like, dude, don't do that. But he turns it off and it's like, I'm not a motorcyclist. I don't know if a motorcycle's still on and the gas is leaking, if that thing's going to explode. I do know I'm not trying to miss my show tonight.
I know gas is flammable. That's all I know. Man.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I know what happens when I flick my big, dude. So I was like, there's no way that I'm doing that. So this guy, covered in blood, just gets up and does this thing. And then me and this other guy wheel it off in this parking lot on the road and get it stood up and like get this guy, and emergency medical services shows up and they want us. This girl that pulls up, she's like, we need a tourniquet. This guy's leg is bleeding really bad. I'm like, I had actually just done some laundry at a girl's house and I was like, oh, I got a towel in my car. And so I take it, we wrap the shit out of this guy's leg. EMS shows up, so nonchalant, and they're just like, and they're like not saying anything to any of us. And I was like, hey, I wasn't a witness. I just stopped to help. Can I go? And they're like, yeah, dude, like, what are you doing here? And I was like, these motherfuckers are so desensitized.
Sure.
That's a Monday morning for them. Little motorcycle accident, and they're lucky if it ain't that bad. And I'm thinking like, I was telling you initially, I know this is a really long story, but this did happen recently, pretty fucking crazy. But this guy had to quit this job because of the emotional trauma that he had no idea came along with it. And I think like how many jobs, like the emotional stresses of a probation officer that's dealing with watching their person that they're paroling, like making bad decisions of their life unfolding, or like a doctor having to tell a family, we just lost your father, you know, in the operating room. And I'm like, dude, there is so much occupational trauma that when an ambulance is coming behind us, we're just like, shit, I got to pull over. And it's like, that guy's on the way to pick up a dead person. Yeah. Shit's crazy out there, dude. So all of that crazy story to just tie into the fact that even if you know what somebody's job is, you don't know what kind of emotional trauma
that go with it, man.
Are coming in, and that could be, you know, affecting their relationship at home or whatever.
Sure.
Sorry for the monologue.
I'll say this: she's a champion, man. She's got a heart of gold. Now the crazy part is she's the sweetest person I've ever met in my life. But I can tell she'll tell me stories and stuff, or I'll hear stories from her coworkers. I know that she can be a hard ass too, when she has to be, you know, which is part of that job. You know, is you can't be a pushover with these people.
You like her to be a hard ass in the bedroom with you, right?
She is.
We can cut that part out if she won't like it.
Nah, she don't care. Yeah. She'd probably rather me not be talking about the fact she's a parole officer than the fact than that.
Oh, so,
yeah. But it's
her being hard on your ass in the bedroom.
Yeah, the rest is all good. But anyway, yeah. So I wanted to be a police. So I got a offer to work for my local police department as a police officer. They were going to send me to the academy, the whole thing. And the same week, I'd been playing music around the bars and stuff. Well, funny enough, so Andy Brasher, that owns Brasher's Little Nashville, he used to be part of this group called Brasher Bogue. And at the time, man, they were going out, they were opening up for Kenny Chesney, and they were on the road doing some
Brasher Bogue?
Brasher Bogue. Man, go listen.
Wait, how do you spell that second word?
Bogue, Bogue.
What's a Bogue?
That's a guy's last name. So it was Andy Brasher and Dustin Bogue.
Oh, nice. Brasher Bogue?
Yep. So they were like a duo. Kind of like a Brooks and Dunn.
Like Brooks and Dunn without the un.
Without the, yeah.
The un.
Sure. Hey, awesome music though. For real, go look up their music, man. It's still on the streamers and stuff. But so at the time they were really doing some big stuff, and Andy, Owensboro guy doing this, he was the man, and especially in Owensboro. And again, there's this big music scene in Owensboro. And at the time when Andy wasn't on the road, he used to host what I believe was the only like open mic type thing going on in Owensboro. And he did it every Tuesday night at a bar called the Boiler Room in Owensboro. And everyone, it was like a musician swap meet there, because it was like there's like 100 of them in town now. But like at the time, it was like not only did you go for the open mic, but you just knew like all the musicians hung out there. So if you wanted to put a band together, you could go to Andy's open mic, and you could just literally you could put a band together in the audience. You know what I mean? And so anyway, I used to, that's kind of where I got my feet wet when I first started playing out once I turned 21, was going down there to his open mics. That led me into getting gigs around my local town and stuff like that. But I did that for like a whole year. And the same week that I got this offer to go be a police officer, a promoter that used to work with Brasher Bogue came into Owensboro to see Andy about something. And she came to this open mic. And me and another friend of mine, Jared Green, who I still play with to this day, he plays guitar for me to this day.
Shout out Jared Green.
Shout out Jared Green. Was playing Andy's open mic. This promoter that was putting this huge run that they were about to do through the Florida Keys. It was like Brasher Bogue's headlining thing. She was literally putting it all together and signing all the paperwork for it, and that's what she had came into town to finalize with Andy. They were putting the last details of this together, and she came in, and I don't know if she had been drinking a lot or if it was just a genuine. I want to say that there had to be something else going on, but at the end of the night, she comes up and she's like, "You have to go on this tour with us. Like, Andy. It's going to be a whole thing. Like, you have to go on this tour with us." And I'm like, I can't. I've got this offer going on. And again, I'd been playing music my whole life, but I'd only been playing out like in my hometown for like a year. You know, I was still green as a blade of grass, and that was my thinking going into it. I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that. So anyway, she's like, I'll put you on. She's like, it's 2.5 weeks. She's like, we play one night, we're off the next. Play one night, we're off the next for 2.5 weeks. Florida Keys, your room's taken care of. You get your own room while you're down there. We'll give you per diem on the days you're off. You know, and then you're gonna go play Superstar every other day, opening up for Brasher Bogue. And I had to make a decision, and I chose to go do that because I thought, the police academy is always going to be there. I got this once. I could do it again if I wanted to. So I went and did that. Had my very first experience actually being on the road and being a musician and just getting a taste even of that life or what it was like. And I came back, and it was curtains, man. I was like, this is what I'm going to do the rest of. I knew it was always what I wanted to do. It was always a passion of mine. I've always played music. I've always had like a garage band all the way through high school, all the way up to that point where I was working. I always had something musical going on in the background, but it was always the secondary thing. I don't think it was until that I went and did that run with them, I came back and I thought, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I can.
Well, the financial reward was probably a big indicator that you could make a life out of it.
It was,
right?
It was, and it wasn't the most lucrative. I'm sure you know how those things go. Like,
well, you're spending money down there,
sure, and we were getting these per diems and stuff like that. But that was, you know how it is, especially being the opening act for something like that. It's more like, yeah, you get your room paid for. Here's some per diem to go out and eat every day, but as far as getting paid,
here's a gift card to Joe's Crab Shack.
As far as getting paid for every show, yeah, it wasn't like we were getting big money, but it was the experience of doing the thing that I was like, wow, this lifestyle. I was like, oh my gosh, I never dreamed I would even get to do that. You know what I'm saying? That was, and I was like, wow, I got to see behind the curtain a little bit. I got to see for the first time. I was like, oh, I see how this works. I see how the mechanism works a little bit. Like, this is doable for me. I can do this. Like, it's not this unicorn flying through the air that's uncut. Like, no, like you can, to some degree, I can do whatever this level is. I can work up to that. I can see how it works, man. And anyway, I came back from that, and I didn't like come home and quit my job or anything like that. I was I like to think I was very smart about it. It took me 2 more years. I paid off the truck that I had at the time, and I paid off some debt. I paid off like a credit card, something like that. And that was, but I put a whole plan together, like to quit my job. Like I knew I had to do that. I wanted to save some money, and I wanted to get like some regular gigs going just to finance myself. And, but I didn't have like a go date. I didn't have like a date where I was like, this is the day I'm going to quit. I just knew I was working toward that. And one day I came into work, and again, I was going out and doing bar gigs 9 to 1 at night, and then drinking like a fish after that, and not getting home till 4 a.m. and having to be at work at 7 a.m. And I was doing that constantly. So, and I was keeping up. I was a young man at the time, I was keeping up, never missed work. But I came in one day, and my boss's brother, who helped run the company, who I was very close with, I guess I looked really rough. I came in one day, I looked really rough. I'd been up all night, was probably hungover. And he pulled me aside, and he's like, damn, Josh. He's like, you got a good thing going here. And he's like, I get you like playing music and doing this thing on the other side of it. But he's like, you're going to have to make a decision one of these days. And he was kind of, what he was trying to tell me was, hey, I need to take my job more seriously and maybe not this music thing. But it was early in the morning when he said that, and I worked by myself. I drove a service van around and fixed air conditioners all day. I was by myself all day long. I drove around, I thought about it all day, and I came back to the office that afternoon before I clocked out, and I pulled him and my boss in. And I was like, Dennis told me this, and I think he's right. It is time I pick. And I was like, I'm giving you my 2-week notice. And
I choose the guitar.
Yeah, and
the heartache and the booze.
And and that was it, man. I've been fortunate enough. I haven't had to have a day job since, which I don't know if that's something to brag about, but I've managed to be a traveling musician for
absolutely it's
for 8
something to
years
brag
now.
about.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I'm right behind you there. I think I'm on 7 right now. But
Yeah.
It's admirable to make. I think it's admirable to make a career out of any career pursuit that you choose,
especially something that you're passionate about.
Yeah, if you are doing what you're able, putting food there on the table, and providing for the family that you love, and you're doing that playing music, I damn sure think that's something to be proud of. I'm proud of you, Josh.
I'm proud of you, man.
Chapter 2 of that story. Bring me back.
So that was August 2014. I quit my job and was doing great. 6 months later, I was about to move to Nashville and had a couch open up for me down here. I was about to move to Nashville. Had a very peaceful break off with the girl that I was seeing. We'd done sit down and talked about it, like, this is, had been really good friends for most of our life and tried this whole relationship thing for like 4 months and it wasn't working. I had things I wanted to go do. I was about to move to Nashville. She had other things she wanted to do. So we sat down and talked about it. I said, hey, I think I'm moving to Nashville. I don't know if this is working out. And that was the plan. And I packed a bag and, before I left, I said, well, the short version is I said, hey, would you take this pregnancy test for me before I left? And she did. It was positive. So 6 months after I quit my job with all these ambitions, I found out I was going to be a daddy. And I didn't get to move to Nashville. And I thought, man, this is a bump in the road for the plan that I had going on. Anyway, I remember I was talking to my daughter's mom about a month after we figured that out, and we decided, we're like, all right, hey, listen, we weren't breaking up because we hated each other. We were breaking up just because, like, let's go try something else. We're having a baby now. Let's try to stay together and let's try to make this work. Maybe we give it a little more effort, being the circumstances or whatever. And I remember we were trying to plan for this kid that we were about to have, and we went out to eat one day and for her lunch break, and I remember her saying, she was like, well, I don't know, I mean, where are you gonna work? Like, what are you gonna do for work? We're about to have a kid. And I hadn't even thought about it until that moment, and I remember thinking, I was like, no, I'm staying the course. I'm gonna do this. And I remember thinking in that moment too, not only am I gonna do this, but I'm not gonna falter as a father. I'm not gonna be in this pursuit of whatever it is, being a musician or whatever. It's not that I'm gonna not give up being a musician because I got to be a father, but I'm gonna do both, and I'm gonna do them to the very best of my ability. And I remember I made a goal of that in that moment as we were sitting at the table, and I told her, I was like, you know what my goal is? I said 6, 7, 8 years from now, I want to be able to go to career day at my daughter's elementary school, and I want to go in and I want my little girl to be able to say, my daddy's a rock star.
My daddy's a fucking rock star.
My daddy's
you
a
kids.
rock star.
Yeah.
What's your dad do? Oh, he computes buildings and builds. That's awesome.
Yeah.
My dad's a rock star. And the coolest thing happened the other day. It's weird that this is all coming around. What happens, let me tell you what happens in that scenario. And I've heard like some of my heroes, like I heard Chris Stapleton say this on an interview one time. Somebody asked him, like, he's very private about his family and stuff, but somebody asked him, they're like, well, what's your kids think about you being the biggest artist in the world at this time? And he said, they don't know the difference. They don't know nowhere. And it's so weird. It's the same with my daughter. Like, she's always known me. She doesn't know, like, I've always thought that she doesn't really care. You know what I'm saying? Just because it's something she's always known. So it's not like, oh my God, my dad's this. So I I never really get that out of her to where she's like, oh my God, she's so excited that I'm this musician, because that's just what I've always been. But the coolest thing happened the other day. Her aunt, so my daughter's mom's, her great aunt, my daughter's mom's aunt, I went and dropped her off for her Thanksgiving dinner the other day. And she pulled me aside and she was like, hey, we were at the store the other day. And her little granddaughter and her is about the same age. And she said, I heard them talking over by the shelves. And she told Paige, she's like, my daddy's a superstar. Did you know that? He's got his own T-shirts and everything.
Oh, dude.
Dude, I lost my shit, dude.
That's sweet, dude.
I didn't there. I held it. I was like, oh, that's really cool. I went to the truck and bawled my eyes out, dude. I was like, that's all I want. That's talking about making it, whatever it is. I'm done. Like, as long as she can still think that and doesn't think I'm just some loser still trying to make it happen 10 years from now, Like,
you're just like a toothless guy wearing a wife beater in a van, selling shirts to little kids. Stream The High on Spotify. Dude, that's why I've never, in the time that I've known you, I've never heard, in my life, I've heard very few people speak as passionately about their love of being a parent. But
it's my favorite thing. It's the cool, in the 8 years since I've been playing music, man, I've got to do some really cool shit over the last 8 years, man. A lot of stuff that I wanted to do. I've got to go play some cool stages and open up for some big guys. And the craziest thing is, it's all I've ever wanted, but it's nowhere cool as being a dad, man. And I'm not just saying that trying to be like, oh, that's what I'm supposed to say. Like, no, it's the coolest fucking thing ever, dude. I get this little human I get to go take to Holiday World. I get to go ride water slides. You know what I mean? Like, I get to be a kid with her, but on the other side of that, I get to teach her, and I get to try to instruct her to do things better than I did it. And it's the coolest thing, man.
Yeah, dude. I love it. And I think it's so admirable. I'm actually really glad that we're talking about it too, because about your journey and you becoming a father and the nature that you did, because so many people will like choose the music and then dirtbag dad, or choose the dad, give up on the dream. And so something extremely at that time inconvenient happened to you, and you were able to say, I'm going to stay the course. I'm going to be the best dad I can be. I'm going to keep singing. And I think there's a lot to respect about that. Good on you, Mr. Merritt.
Thanks, man.
Good on you, sir.
It's not without effort. I'll say that. You know what I mean? Like, it's not easy.
I've always thought too, like with utmost certainty, I'm like, when I get to the point of fatherhood, like I want to be, not necessarily married maybe, but in a extreme commitment with another person, and be fully ready and fully prepared. And I guess everybody fantasizes like, I don't want to have a kid. I don't want to have. Who wants to have a surprise kid? Obviously we can all understand that. But I've had visions. I'm like, I want to have this much money in the bank, and I want to be at this point in my relationship, and I want to have all my traveling with my girl out of the way, or whatever it's going to be, and that way that I can do that with intent. But I think, even just talking to you about it, it sounds like when that day does come, and however it may come, that's a man's decision how you're going to move down that road.
Sure. And
anybody that's doing an acceptable job at both gets my eternal respect.
Thanks, man. Again, it's
Has she? Sorry, go ahead.
No, you say what you.
I was going to say, does she watch you play? Has she been to your shows?
Yeah, she does. And again,
she's singing with you yet? How old is she?
She'll be 7 next week, actually. Yeah, so
she's already in like talent show territory.
Well, and here's the thing, like she's not like she's not ate up with the, like I told you about, like when I was a kid, like I was 4 or 5 years old, I was like, I'm gonna be country music. She's not ate up with the music bug. I don't know that will be, maybe it will be someday, but I don't see that for her, to be honest. Like, you can, I feel like you can see through your kids a little bit, and I don't see that as, she likes music, she loves music, and she's got perfect pitch. She sings in the car and stuff. She's a great little singer. And but I don't see that path for her.
I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah, and
children are resilient at finding
here's
their path.
And here's the thing, like you'd think me doing what I do, that would be my goals for her. And if she does that, I'm gonna be ecstatic about it, man. You know what I'm saying? But I would love just as much for her to find something else that she's passionate about and something else that she does.
Don't you miss the initial interest and creativity that came with falling in love with it initially? I know that I do, because now creativity is a discipline. Now I have to sit down and decide I'm going to write. I'm not gonna get high or drunk before this. I'll probably be a little high, let's be honest. But if I'm writing, but once you take the career approach, I think some of the glory and the mysticism surrounding the creativity goes away. So I'm kind of in a point right now, because I'm gearing up to
the repetition. I mean, it's just like anything. It's once you get into the day in, day out of it, it wears it down a little bit. And I mean, you know.
Well, I'm gearing up to record some music this next year, which will be my first music that I've ever recorded under my own name as an artist, which is going to be my kind of like country Americana outlaw type thing. But I'm trying to figure out how to kind of like reawaken that childlike creativity and excitement about this. Not that I don't get excited. I still have great moments, like big high highs. But it just seemed like in my youth, creativity would naturally pour out more, and now I have to kind of summon it. I have to turn off the phone and the Instagrams and the Pornhubs or whatever it is, and just turn that shit off and really go, I got to kind of extract it now. So I wonder if I'm just drinking too much, if I'm not exercising enough.
No, I think it's everybody, that's especially the older you get. I think I was probably the most creative. Everybody is when you're younger, because your options for
entertainment, right?
Entertainment, sensory in general, they're limited. You know what I'm saying? When you live at home, you can't just go and come as you please. I mean, if you grew up in a household like mine, you know what I mean? Like getting out of the house to myself when I was first, 15, 16 years old, it was a whole process. Dad, can I go here? I'm going, you know what I mean? So you spent a lot more time at home. You spent a lot more time in your room if you were like me, and there wasn't all. And plus, when I was younger too, there wasn't all these options. There wasn't Netflix. There wasn't, I had a flip phone. I didn't have a phone that was so accessible. So I don't know. I just feel like it was easier to pick up a guitar and be creative.
You just made me think of something. I was like, why was I down to spend more time playing music and learning keyboard and guitar and everything more than anything else? And I realized it was the first thing that I did for myself. I'm saying my parents put me in soccer and taekwondo and, all the other activities that kids do, art groups or whatever, art lessons was a thing I went to. I was like 6 years old, just a bunch of kids crowded around this old lady with canvases and paintbrush. And so they would expose me to stuff. But I remember I saw School of Rock starring Jack Black, the Oscar-nominated 2003 film directed by, what's his name, the Dazed and Confused guy? Richard Linklater.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that too.
Richard Linklater. And then I was like, I want a guitar. So luckily my parents are in a position for Santa to bring a guitar. And then I was choosing to do that. They weren't putting me in, that class or anything. And then I did do guitar lessons for a little bit, but it was because I was asking to.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the part that maybe comes from somewhere else. Maybe it's like a spiritual realm or something. I don't know what it is, but whatever makes somebody latch on to something. Even, dude, I get equally as fascinated. Like I was watching this Netflix documentary the other day about this guy on The Price is Right. And he like memorized for like years.
I seen that. Yeah.
And I was just
he would yell at the stuff out. Yeah.
And I was just fascinated by that, because I was just like, what is it that made like that? He tells the story in the beginning. He's a kid. He's like, I'm watching TV. My older siblings want to watch The Price is Right. And I'm like, I don't want to watch this. I want to watch Sanford and Son or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then he's like, by the end of that episode, I was hooked. He's like, the music, everything. So I'm just like, what is it about people and human nature that makes you really just fall in love with something like that people get obsessed with? Hiking, those guys that do like free solo climbing, they can't not do it.
It just like you said, it hit you. Like I was sitting here thinking on the backside of you talking, saying why you got into music, and it hit me why music was the first thing that I can remember being good at. When I was a kid, I was kind of I was real standoffish, and I've always had social anxiety. People always look at me with cross eyes when I say I have really bad social anxiety, but I've always had still do have really bad social anxiety. And when I was a kid, I was pretty awkward. I grew up I went to like 12 different schools by the time I graduated. Man, I was in and out of schools all the time, so I didn't have like a solid foundation of friends until I was much older. And I played sports, and I liked sports. But I never was good. I never was like an exceptional basketball player, and I played football and I was pretty good at that. I've always been a big guy. So
yeah, I started to say, just because you were hard to knock over doesn't mean you're good at football.
No, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. No, I played football all the way through school, but I literally did it just because I liked getting on the bus and hanging out with my friends. I had no passion of playing football. I was oddly good at it, not because I was good at football, but because I was good at running over the person that was in front of me. I was a lineman, so it's just, hey, the guy in front of you, either don't let him pass or knock his dick in the dirt. That's the only two things. But anyway, I never was passionate about those things, and even then, when I would say I was good at that, there was never going to be any colleges calling my name and just anything in general, man. Like I wasn't, I don't remember being really good at anything until I started playing music. And I can remember it was always just something that I did for myself and at home. And I kind of thought it never was. There was never a vein where it was, but I always kind of thought it was this nerdy thing that nobody would appreciate for some weird reason. And I would only do it at home. I never did it around my friends or anything. And I can remember being in high school, like a freshman, and there's always that kid. I never was the kid in the hallway playing his guitar and stuff. That never was me. But we had one of those kids, and I remember one day he was sitting out there playing. For some reason, we were around him, and I had his guitar, and it was handed to me, and I played a song. I think I played like Desperado by the Eagles or something.
On guitar?
Yeah. And
did you do the riff?
I do like my favorite thing to play on guitar is piano songs. It's a really weird thing. I don't know that I don't know that I excel at them, but my favorite artists are piano. I think we talked about that on my podcast. So my favorite artists are the Piano Kings.
Oh, the Elton John story.
Yeah, exactly.
Which you'll have to watch our other podcast if you want the Elton John story.
Yeah, for sure.
That's a good one.
But anyway, I played this kid's guitar, and I was real standoffish to do it, but I remember looking up in the middle of it, and everybody was quiet. Everyone was looking at me. I mean, the whole hallway full of people just shut down. You know what I'm saying? They were looking at me, and girls were looking at me for the first time. And I thought, I'd always wanted to do it, but never thought that it was a thing or that I ever would. And I remember thinking, oh yeah, I'm good at this. You know what I'm saying? Not in a vain way, but thinking okay, this is the way that my best friends on the football field, who were the colleges were looking at them. This is the same way that they looked at them when we were playing football. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? No, they're looking at me like that right now. That means they think I'm good at this, which told me hey, yeah, green light. You know what I'm saying? You have something here.
I talk about this a lot with people, what got them to latch on. But what seems to be a common theme is identity association.
Yeah.
Think, here's what I'm trying to say. As a teenager, you're growing up. Why are football people popular, and why, if you're able to associate somebody with something and they have an identity, it's comfortable. There's nothing weirder than like the quiet kid that isn't involved in any of the clubs and stuff and sits in the back corner, and you're worried is like going to shoot up a school or whatever,
Right.
and you're like, God forbid. But then if you become the guitar guy, and like everybody sees you with a guitar, and then you're like the guitar guy.
I think I was always on a search for my identity too, just trying to figure that out until well after I got out of school, I'd say. But like I said, I got tossed around a lot when I was younger. I went to a lot of different schools and
What was his name?
George.
I got tossed around.
Yeah, I got it.
I told you every chance I get,
I'm
Merritt.
there. I was right there on you
Fucking
too.
You were George. You had George at the ready. It's fucking funny.
But what I learned was, man, I hated it back then. I hated. I feel like I never had friends because I always. But what I didn't know is going to all these different schools. I was learning how to be in new environments and make friends very quickly. It was a skill set that I was learning that I didn't realize that I was learning. And later on in life, once I developed myself a little bit, it's one of the things now where like I still have really bad social anxiety, but I have a full toolkit with me at all times on how to approach a room, how to approach a crowd, how to approach people that want to talk to me and stuff. And it's not fake or anything like that. It's just I know.
You've got the utility belt. You know how to turn it on now.
Sure, because I've always had to. You know what I mean? Whereas some people don't. You know, I think of people. Did you go to the same school all the way through? The same
pretty
school
much.
Set, same people from kindergarten to.
And I was never like a cool kid. I was just one that was kind of. I think I was smart enough to keep my distance from people that were going to cause me problems.
Yeah.
Have you ever played in church? You ever done like worship music?
Never.
That's how I got my start playing in front of people.
A lot of people do.
Was playing worship music down at Grace Community non-denominational church there in Ward, Arkansas. Shout out Grace Community.
Almost everyone I play with to this day, church was like where they got their come up.
I can't believe you've never done that.
I grew up in church was the crazy thing, and I've never.
Dude, I feel like you would crush at that.
Unless someone could prove that I did, and I don't remember. I don't think I've ever played in church.
I could totally see you up there being like, everybody put your hands up. Our God is an awesome God. He reigns. And people just chanting, people like falling over.
I'm so weird, man. And we had a conversation. We don't have to go into it, but
our lunch conversation.
It
was way more interesting than this. We got all that was all the shit we can't say on the air.
Got it out of the way. But I have a strange relationship with religion and a relationship with God, and it's a very personal one. Like I grew up in church, but like I said, that the idea of church and stuff, it doesn't appeal to me anymore. Like, and maybe I don't know that that's a good thing.
I don't think that is
thing,
strange at all. Yeah. I think that is absolutely what the goal should be. I think church, regardless of religion, church is about fellowship and a place that's a foundation for a community to interact together. And I totally believe your relationship with God and whatever universal power you believe in, that's between you and the big man.
Yeah, you know? And I like to say all the time, like, it doesn't mean that I'm like anti-church or anything, but maybe I just haven't found my group. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I just haven't found my fellowship.
Have you ever been to a non-denominational church?
Yeah, and I can't, and I don't want to be offensive to anybody. I can't get into it, man. Like it isn't.
That's all a show.
That's me. I know, but and that's kind of what I'm saying. Like I just, dude, I hate to be at church and be eye rolly because I know that that's like totally the opposite of what you're supposed to be,
dude.
But my whole thing too is I'm a very, to a fault sometimes, I'm a very honest person. Like I wear my. Like I could have a pimple on my ass right now, and I'm going to talk to you about it. Like I'm very forthright. Do
you?
I don't. No, it's
Can I look?
cured up. Yeah, we can pull it out. Yeah.
Dude, I remember like I got saved as a kid because I went to church camp, and I'm like 6 years old, and I grew up in a super old school Southern Baptist church, which you said you were raised Catholic, but Southern Baptist is the hand of God up high to the sky.
Yeah.
The stone was rolled away.
Yeah.
Kind of energy. And so I went to church camp, and everybody was getting saved, and everybody my whole life, my mom, my grandparents, everybody was telling me, like, you got to get saved. You got to accept Jesus Christ into your heart or you're going to hell. I'm like, well, isn't that the place that's fire and brimstone? That sounds like terrible. I'm definitely going to accept him into my heart.
Yeah.
So I remember feeling pressured. They did like an altar call, and they're like, if you feel God calling you right now, people like my friends, my mom, just kind of nudging me like, is God calling you? God calling you? And I'm like, shit, I guess he is, man. I walk up there, I got baptized and didn't have a clue what I was thinking or what I was feeling. And then later I was saying, I remember when I was a little older looking around, and they at this point we're in the non-denominational church that has like the rock band and like the nice projection screens and the DSLR cameras filming everything. And this girl had her hands up and was just like losing. And if you had your hands up, that meant that you were really feeling the Holy Spirit. And I remember thinking, that girl gave 3 hand jobs to 3 different guys at the junior high last week. And she's feeling the Holy Spirit that hard?
Yeah.
I was like, something's going on here. This is for show.
It's tough, man. And
Isn't it all for show? Everything we do?
It is. Yeah. And here's the thing.
Everything's a show.
I want to say I feel the exact same way about that. But I've tried to coach myself to live by the golden rule and try to put myself in other people's shoes, or try to at least. And I have the same thing with like those kind of experiences as I do with music. I used to be like the biggest music snob. Like I went through my whole phase where I was like, pop country, blah 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 blah, and I have the same feeling about that as I do about like those people and that are in religion like that. And it is that if they are, maybe I can't feel it like that. Maybe I can't feel it after I've been out on a bender or something. But if they are feeling some experience and it is letting some kind of light into their heart, even if it's just in that moment, they're going to go out and screw it up or something right after they leave there or whatever. If they are, then that's between them, you know what I mean? And they should be able to have that experience. Same with music, man. If a tailgate and beer song, if that honestly, if some guy's driving to work and he's like, God, this is making me really excited about going home and drinking a beer after that, that's between him and that song, man. If he's really feeling something from it, no matter how cheap I think the song may be or whatever, if he's truly, truly feeling something for it, then what the fuck why is that my business? You know what I'm saying? Maybe I should just like my music that I like and,
Well, you can even take it one step further and like who you love.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's why I think
that's exactly right, man. And I've always felt that way, man. And exactly, just like you said, man, I've always had the idea of it is none of my business what somebody does when they shut the bedroom door. You know what I'm saying? Like, why the, I just to each their own. That's a very, live and let live. And it's hard to live that way. You know what I'm saying? But I truly believe in it. I truly believe in trying to practice it as much as I can.
Did you hear about this Jelly Roll and Travis Tritt controversy?
Yes. And
okay.
Let me tell you the sticklers of this, why I'm so conflicted. For one, Travis Tritt's one of my biggest heroes of all time, man.
One of the best,
Like,
dude.
He's probably one of my biggest influences, I'll say. Is somebody I watched and wanted to be them at probably times in my life. Still, his music's probably my favorite of all time.
Dude, we play 3 or 4 of his songs every night.
Sure,
Here's a quarter.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. So here's the thing. I'm on this new path where I'm trying not to shit on music in general that other people like, but I'm not a huge fan of country rap. I'm not. But in the last year or so, I've tried to get over that and know that, okay, maybe it's just not for me. It's not my business to shit on it or whatever. And in doing that, I've started listening to Jelly Roll a little bit. I didn't like his stuff as much as some people did when I first listened to it. But I'd say honestly, in the last like month or so, like I've got to where I'm like, oh, I get it. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to be the top of my list, but I get it, man, and found some appreciation for him. And then anyway, this tweet battles came out, and
if you're listening to this and you don't know what happened, Jelly Roll is really blowing up right now.
Sure.
Very successful, I guess kind of rap centered country, kind of like rock kind of music.
Yeah.
Kind of like Hardy.
Just mixes a bunch of
Yeah. And Travis Tritt tweeted, not at anybody, but just tweeted and said,
in general,
hey, everybody just remember what happens when you mix country and rap, you get crap. And then Jelly sends this kind of nasty tweet back at him that's like, come on, Travis, you're a legend. Don't tweet on Ambien. Like, which is pretty like, Travis is a legend, but he's also, just kind of an old man too. You just kind of let him, like, if that's how Grandpa
I get what he's saying, because I felt like when I read that, I felt like that's something my dad would say.
I'm tying this into, you said, if that guy's really feeling something.
Yeah.
Well, I shit you not, dude. A day later, I'm walking up 3rd Avenue from Broadway. I'm just walking down the street, and I come to a stoplight, and I hear, what's that main Jelly Roll song? I'm just a long-haired.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
It's his like big song.
Yeah. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah,
it's the one I've been listening to.
Yeah. And anyway, and I look over, and this woman is probably 65 years old with long white hair, and she's holding her steering wheel and just smiling and singing every word of that song.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, wow, man, the Jelly Roll's like what, in his late 20s, maybe early 30s,
Sure.
Spent the first half of his life in prison and juvenile detention centers, tattoos all over his face, 450-pound dude.
And where he won me over, man, if you've watched him on podcasts and stuff, he seems like the coolest. He's like the dude
so
you'd
down
want
to
to
earth.
chill with.
Did you see the video of him playing Almost Home with Craig Morgan at the Opry?
Dude. Yeah.
Tears, right?
Oh, my God.
He didn't tear up thinking about the journey that guy been through and that song. And so I looked at that and I thought, me as an individual, I agree with Travis Tritt. I like old country. I'm not a fan of pop country. I'm not a fan of rap country. That's just what I prefer. I like traditional and classic sounding country music. Merle Haggard and Alan Jackson. But clearly Jelly Roll's doing something that works if a 65-year-old woman is smiling and singing about that. And it got me thinking, I'm like, what if she's got like a son that went to prison or a son that died, and that shit would make me tear up on the podcast. Damn, got me. But as you get older and you learn to empathize with other people's perspectives and walk a mile in another man's moccasins, as they say, it seems that there's an increase in your overall understanding and patience and compassion towards your environment.
It definitely comes with age. One of my only beefs with Travis's side of it is that to me, I remember like my dad's a huge 80s country. He grew up in 80s country. And I'm a huge 90s country fan, obviously, because that's when I grew up or whatever. But I can remember those 80s country cats, the Whalens, the Will, everybody that was coming, Alabama and all them that was coming up. When this whole brand of 90s country came along in the 90s, and they were wearing the tight leather pants for the first time and mixing a little rock and roll into their country. Well, sure, but it was Travis Tritt too. Here's the thing, like he's got.
I didn't think about that. That Travis was more of the Southern rock.
Well, you think of his put some drive in your country.
Right.
I mix country rock and that's just what I did. Put some drive in your. He was mixing genres right there. So it's like you made your foundation off of this real putting this Johnny B. Good in country music. You know what I'm saying? So, which I love that music. You know what I'm saying? But why? maybe he just didn't think about it like that. But why shit on someone else for mixing genres? I want to say when the foundation of who you are as a musician is
Totally.
yeah. Put this up and Travis Triddle tweet me something really shitty because that's been my life the last 3 years. Jason Isbell, I'm a huge Jason Isbell fan, and during the pandemic, he tweeted something that I didn't set with me well about musicians starting playing back on Broadway and stuff. And I tweeted him something back. I was just like, hey man, like some of us are just trying to get out of the apartment, blah, 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 thinking he would never see it. He retweeted it and it ended up on CNN and everything else.
No way.
And
you got a screenshot of that?
And his entire coalition for 6 days text me shitting punching me in the gut, dude. Like it was so horrible. I was like, man, there's this guy idolizing.
You do idolize him, and you're right in his like strike zone of music, like Americana.
Yeah.
Folk,
he's the leader of what I'm trying to do. You know.
Yeah, and dude, we talk about this a lot. It gets brought up a lot. Jason Isbell is one of the finest artists and one of the most stunning lyricists, and the simplicity of his music and the heart and the emotion in it. I mean, the guy's the best. He's one of our very best representatives of a sincere sound in modern Americana.
I've seen him 15 times
country
live.
music.
I'm a fangirl.
But he is. I've yet to see him live. And boy, can the guy play guitar? Shit out of the guitar.
15 times. I just seen him on his Rhyme and Run. I've seen him in January in Evansville, and then me and my girlfriend are going to see him in Red Rocks next year. And he punched me right in the gut. But
I was going to say, he's just downright nasty with his liberal agenda,
especially on Twitter. Yeah, you don't want to. It's like, and he says on there all the time, he's like, "Don't get on here if you don't want it."
Right.
You know what
well,
I mean?
what's so weird about it is, one, I understand being in a position where your opinion can influence people. I think you definitely have the right, if you want to endorse a presidential candidate or play at their rally, or like Toby played at Trump's inauguration. Toby has that right to play at Trump's inauguration or whatever. But it is something different to use a tweet, as a direct from Jason Isbell to your phones. Basically, it's the closest thing to a text that's sent out to a large group of people, right? Yeah. And he is just scathing. He will rip people's heads off, and his agenda is so aligned with the far left that it isolates people that are just caught in the middle, that are like, I'm not into Democrat or Republican. I think that's a majority of people I meet. They're like, fuck the bi-party system. Fuck these political agendas. Most people I meet are very level-headed people trying to make their way and survive in America. And so it is kind of disconcerting to see somebody that's such a great artist that is so deeply admired by somebody like you. And if you know, when COVID happened, how desperate we all were to start geeking again and working again, because us full-time musicians that don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars of royalties or concerts.
Well, and that's what I said. That's what I said on my tweet. And it was really crazy. I remember I was driving over a bridge, and
what was his tweet?
I was in a bad way. Broadway had just started out the night before. Reopened or something like that. And he was talking about, his tweet said something about how there needed to be more responsibility amongst the musicians that were choosing to go back down during this pandemic, and which was rallying people together during a time of sickness, blah, 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 blah. And my tweet back was, hey, man, I don't think that you're thinking about the fact that, his tweet was directly talking about the people that they were rallying back together, and how you were mass asking people to come back into a room. And my tweet was, what I meant anyway was that, hey, I don't think you're thinking about the fact that that these musicians that work down there and make their living down there, like, we've been trapped, some of us in a 1-bedroom apartment for 6 months with absolutely no income, and our mental health is at stake here. His retweet back, and I don't know that he meant it shitty. I think it was more a blanket statement just to make a statement. But he said, sorry, bud. I don't think cramming elbow to elbow in Kid Rock's Big Ass Honky Tonk is helping anyone's mental health. To which his coalition, the only thing they took from that was Kid Rock's big ass honky tonk it back together. So every tweet back, like everyone that tweeted back at me was like, yeah, you and Kid Rock can go suck each other's dick and fuck y'all, blah blah. And I was like, dude, I've never even been to Kid Rock's.
That's what I'm saying about it,
man.
because
Like it wasn't, and
well, and you're like,
he kind of used me as a way to say something for, off the back of what I said. I get it.
Well, you're like the nicest guy in the world, and
Yeah.
clearly have infinite respect for this guy. And that's kind of what I mean.
Yeah.
I eternally believe in free speech. I definitely am not a fan of any of this censorship unless you're committing a crime or physically, harming someone or abusing someone with your language.
Right.
Like I think whether it's Trump or Alex Jones or nobody's Twitter should be pulled off unless they're,
Right.
committing a crime, which Trump may have been doing with the January 6th stuff. Who knows? But
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll figure that out. But Isbell, with that, not only did he pull up Kid Rock, who is a representative of the worst political representative of the other. Well, let me rephrase that. I don't know Kid Rock. I know a lot of people that know him, and I don't know if he's a bad guy or not. But what I mean is, Kid Rock, Travis Tritt, these guys are very vocal at their shows about their right-wing agenda.
Yeah.
So Isbell pulled the most flammable person into that tweet to group you in with that, and compared everybody that was going to come to Nashville or all these musicians that were going to work to Kid Rock and his political agenda. And so all that tweet did was start a war and crush a fan.
Yeah.
So like, I just hope if ever I'm in a position like Jason Isbell, if ever I have the level of influence like that, or people I know, use it for good, build up. I think you can push your agenda without being scathing and ripping people's heads off like that.
And the way that I've kind of gotten
Over it.
past it is maybe he thinks that he is. Maybe he thinks that he is using it for that's in his, in his
Whatever
mind.
his world is.
Those are the things that he believes, you know what I'm saying? Those are the passions on his heart. So maybe he thinks, that he is doing something good.
Jason Isbell, who we have infinite admiration and respect for, while he was in his big ass house shredding on his Marshall half stack and doing guitar videos every day.
Yeah,
And-
200 acres outside to
Yeah,
wander free.
and door dashing or whatever it was.
Yeah.
If he knew what it was like in that one bedroom apartment for somebody that couldn't pay rent, people that were getting evicted and stuff. I just think a little compassion would go a long way.
Yeah.
And he's been doing that for years. And I don't care where my career goes or if this hurts me or if this part even makes it in the final edit of the podcast, but I'm just like, I think Jason Isbell is isolating a lot of people that he could be reaching
Yeah.
by the nature of how scathing he is.
Yeah.
All of his ideas might be right, but he's pushing people like me away.
Yeah, and I mean his whole commentary, because that's his entire Twitter feed is people telling him exactly that, or they're on his side, and
Or worshiping him.
or worshiping, and his whole thing is he's like, that's the hill that I stand on is, if you're with me, great. If you're not, bye. I don't want you as a fan anymore.
So you released an album back in the year 2020, actually.
That was November of 2019. I finished it. I had a plan put together on how I wanted to release it and stuff. So I had loosely put together a team to help me release it. Hired a publicist, the whole thing, that's putting out records. That's the key in the whole, man.
Well, yeah, because
publicist,
because you have like articles written about you in AmericanSongwriter.com and everything, so that so acquiring a publicist who knows how to reach out to these people and say like, how do they pitch your record?
Yeah, it's huge. Not only do they help you pitch your record, but they help you put the record out.
How did you get in touch with that person?
Oh, it's a long friend of a friend of a friend.
Well, clearly,
I hate when people say that, because that's like, it seems like because it seems like you ask people for advice that are doing things, and it almost seems like they don't want to open the door for you a little bit, or like there's some secrecy to it.
Right.
But a lot of times, and the deeper I get into it, I do understand it a little bit when somebody says something like that, a friend of a friend of a friend, because that's literally what that was. And the company that I worked with, Baby Robot Media, they're out of California, actually. And that's literally it. I was talking to somebody, they had a friend, I talked to them. Then all of a sudden I get an email from somebody, hey, let me hear what you got, and we'll see if we want to work together. That's exactly was it. Like I had to send them almost like a record label or something. I had to send them my project. They had to even make sure that they wanted to work with it before that they would do it. They emailed me back, hey, we're great. Here's our extraordinary fee, which is so expensive. I don't want to say on mic. I'll tell you off mic how much it was.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's expensive.
But I mean, that's kind of how you got to get your shit circulating, because the fact that you go to your website and it says like, here's a review on your album from AmericanSongwriter.com, which carries enough weight in its own. So, I mean, even for me, since I'm gearing up I have recorded tons of music over the course of my life in different groups and bands and names and stuff. But like I said, I've been waiting to use my actual name to be like, what style of music do I want to play? What do I really feel like is the voice that I have to share? So before I release that music, you think you got to have that publicist.
It's the thing I won't do without anymore. It's the most expensive part of it, man. I mean, I've got as much in that as not as much as I do in recording the record, but probably half as much.
Right.
And that, but it's the only way, because everything in the music industry is gate kept, man. Like it.
Dude, you talk to anybody.
You can't even pitch your stuff to anyone, because there's no unsolicited,
without money
blah, blah, blah.
behind it.
It's all it is, and so the only way to do it is you have to hire somebody that has some keys. Yeah, I mean that's it.
You got to hire somebody that's got some keys.
That's it.
Keeping that gate.
Yeah.
Yeah. And dude, it just seems that like, I mean, you know how many hacks there are out there like that make it to the Grand Ole Opry and stuff. And it's just like a lot of these people that are making it, they've got investors. They shook the right hand at the right time with the right glass of scotch in there.
Or they've got money. There's a reason in the rap world. I don't know if you listen to like or follow. There's a reason so many rappers hit, man, and I hate to say it, but it's because like a lot of them come up through. There's a lot of those guys that come up through channels in deep neighborhoods in big cities where there's a drug dealer, or there, you know what I'm saying, that can finance a record and things like that, and
not just a drug dealer, but
as an example, I'm saying, or somebody with a financial back that hey, that's in the business of making deals with people, in the business of financing people.
I'm so glad you said that, because that's exactly what it is. Because how many times have you been like, Rolling Stone will be like, rapper, this guy's died, and you're like, I've never heard of this guy. You click on it and he's got 10 million followers, and he's 23 years old.
That's what I mean.
So how the fuck can you be 23 years old and have, released music for 2 years?
They don't have money. They have access to money, though. They have access to investors.
Access to investors and exposure and people. And if you're in a community where...
And the only reason I said that like that, I'm not trying to be... It's just that in that world, because I'm very familiar with that world, in that world... that's the whole racket of that world, like a drug dealer, is that usually you're putting stuff out on consignment. So in general, you're letting people borrow, whether it's drugs or fronting money or something like that. So
even hiding money.
Yes.
Too.
So if someone from the neighborhood, hey, I put this demo tape out, tell me what you think. Can you put $50,000 behind me so that I can go push this thing? Yeah, here you go. You owe me this much back. Like that's the whole business model.
And why do so many of them die so young?
Well, it's that world.
No,
man.
I'm saying
it's
I loan you $50,000. You get 10 million followers, and you got 50 million plays on Spotify.
Yeah,
and I'm still
I haven't got my money back yet.
You've got a new Lamborghini, and I still haven't.
But that's the business model from the ground up, though. It's the business model from that level, but it's also the business model with record executives and for all genres of music. Like, what people don't understand about the recording industry is, like, if you get signed to a record deal, you're signed to someone who has agreed to front you money to make a record. But you have to pay that money back. If that record flops, it's not like, oh, we invested and it didn't work, like, we're just cashing it up as nothing. No, you owe, just like a bank, you owe that money back to that record label. People don't know or think about that.
Dude, that's exactly what it is. That's the cutthroat side of the industry that a lot of people don't have a clue about.
Yeah.
I know a guy that played the Grand Ole Opry last year as the artist on the bill that is currently $400,000 in debt to investors.
Yeah. It happens easy, man. So you have to be very careful. And I learned that at a good time, I think, man, because I'm very careful about that. And it's the reason I take my time. I take my time doing this stuff because I'm the sole investor on all my music. Now, the trick is it takes a long time to do things, and you have to work very hard, and you have to save very hard. But
dude, an album,
I don't owe anybody any money.
Right, and when you do it that way, an album for us is like buying a car. Dude, I sunk $8,000 into my last record.
Yeah.
My rock music record. Worked my ass off on it and did not see $1 of financial return. Every bit of it was because I loved it and it was art that I wanted to make.
Sure.
$8,000.
Oh yeah.
Down the tubes. And I'm looking square in your eyes knowing damn well you know exactly how it feels.
Oh yeah.
What's next for you?
I've got another record on the way.
You've got another record on the way.
It's halfway done. I was planning on putting it out.
You got a name for it?
Next year. Yeah, 206.
206.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, keep your eyes and ears peeled for 206 by Josh Merritt, guy who's become one of my great friends, and it has been a privilege to spend some time with you today, Mr. Merritt. Check him out on joshmerritt.com. Follow him on Instagram at, what's your Instagram?
I am Josh Merritt.
I am Josh Merritt.
Yep.
And please keep up with this beautiful Kentucky man as he continues to share his art, his compassion, and his heart with the world. Thanks for being here, buddy.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, give it up, Mr. Josh Merritt, and we'll see you next time on the Payton Collier Podcast.
How many times can I be for